Go for it.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for Friday, December 9th. Our format today is a little bit different. Dave Slusher is not with us. He is traveling in the UK. He was out there participating in hackathons and meetups and DevRel conferences and all sorts of good stuff. So today it's just me and my cohort.
I'm Chuck Tomasi, platform architect at ServiceNow on the solution consulting team. So thanks for having me be back. I'm no stand-in for Dave Slusher, but it's always fun to be part of the team.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So hopefully we're not going to have too many technical difficulties today. We're a little bit out of sync on the audio. So if you have anything, if you see anything weird going on and from the viewer side, we apologize for that. So we've got some weird delays going on right now. Let's give this about 5 seconds to catch up. Can you hear me, Chuck?
I can hear you. It's
okay.
It's pretty good on the broadcast side. So keep going as if nothing's wrong.
Okay, we will do that. We will just assume that everything is great. So as we get started here, let's just remind everybody what we're doing. So Live Coding Happy Hour is our live and unscripted, sort of the anti-demo. We're going to sit here and we're going to hack on some code. We're going to work on some stuff, and it's not guaranteed to work because what we found is that as we fight with problems, we often find a lot more value than in showing sort of the polished demo. So last week, we spent some time working on an application where we are backing up and then automatically restoring records from a scoped app as we build that scoped app and start working on some of the restoration code that we did last week. But before we do, as we always do, what are we drinking today?
I have the best damn root beer, 5.5% ABV. So it's technically a beer and it's technically alcoholic. So I'm participating in happy hour today.
Excellent. That sounds good. Actually, I really like those root beers. There's one here in the Chicago area called I think it's Not Your Father's Root Beer, and it's so delicious.
There's a
I have a Revolution Anti-Hero IPA, as Dave always likes to rag a lot. So that's what I'm drinking here.
I'm not sure if it's this one or not, but I think it's either this one or Coney Island root beer that has a hint of anise at the end. And if you're not aware of it, you taste and go, what's wrong with this root beer? But the more you drink it and know that the anise hint is there, the better it gets if you're into that licorice flavor. But I digress. Let's move on. Coding and less happy hour, more coding.
Sounds like a plan. I mean, it's a hard decision to make. But I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen, and we're just going to jump right into this so we can hopefully get through as much as we can today. So let's share that out. And then Chuck, I think you're going to need to do some things to lock.
I locked the screen and I've got our avatars hidden, so you are good to go.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and zoom this up. And what I'm going to do is first just a quick recap of what we did last week. So we have our application that we started to build, and we've called this the data preserver. And we built out a data model, and within this data model, we defined 3 levels of things. We had something called the source application, and this is what application are we working on that we actually want to back up data from. And this is a reference to an actual application scope. So in this case, I have 2 here. Since last week, I actually created another demo app just to make it easy for us to show what it is that we're working on. So here is one of those. Inside each source application, we then have what we call a preserver or a table preserver. And this is saying that we're going to back up records from a specific source table. So in this case, let's go ahead and open this one up. Here is a preserver that is associated with the demo records table. And then finally, we have the records table, and the records table contains the actual payload and a reference to the original record. So if I go ahead, here is my preserver. Let's go ahead and just take a few steps back, and I'll show you what the demo data looks like.
Josh, I've got a question about your data model. You've got a table ID and a table sys that reference. It's very much like the sys attachment table. Is there a way we could have done this with a document ID field and combine those two, perhaps?
So I had thought about a document ID. One of the challenges is when you have a document ID, it expects a reference. So basically, it expects to have a table field on the form. One of the things I ran into was because our use case is restoring records after an application has been deleted, because as we switch branches and source control, it completely removes the app.
Mhm.
Anything that's considered a sort of a reference. And so I believe those tables are in that same category where the table goes away and now we don't have the actual table to reference and things get kind of wonky. So in this case, I just have simple string representations.
You did mention that on the last episode. Yep.
Yeah, it's still something I want to investigate because I think that's a cleaner, nicer way to do it. And it's more sort of the way the platform does it. I prefer that. But that was the reasoning for that. So this is one of those records. If we actually look at the demo records table, I just created this table with 2 columns so that we can, very easily back stuff up and restore stuff as we go through our development. And so I've got record 1 through 10 with all of them with the same description. And so nothing exciting here. It's just what we're using for our backup purposes. And then once that's been backed up, this is what it looks like. So we did the demo last week. At the very end, we were able to successfully do a backup. We ran into some errors, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But this is what we're saving into the database. So we have the display value, we have a payload, which is a JSON representation of that, and then we store a reference to the preserver that preserved it, and then like we were just saying a moment ago, the table and the table sysID. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just open up a window, and we're going to run a couple of scripts just to, again, sort of remind us where we're at. So let's go ahead and pick our data preserver scope. And I'm going to copy in and paste the scripts that we were running before. So in this case, we have a line that says preserver, and this is the preserver definition that we built before. We're going to then instantiate our data preserver backup script include that we built last week. And then when we call dpb.backup records, it's going to go ahead and copy all the records into the data preserver record table. Now I'm going to just delete all these. Here, I'm going to delete these. Let's just make sure our code is still working. Since we are picking up where we left off, I want to make sure that things are functioning the way we think they are. And there we go. So it found 10 records. And for each of them, it says there's nothing in the preserver table yet. We're going to go ahead and create it.
And if it were
So
already there, is it going to do an update? What's it doing? I forgot what we had there. Was it ignoring it or was it updating?
It will update it. Yep. So it's going to basically this way you can back it up multiple times. And as you change the record, we're going to capture those changes.
Cool.
So yeah, so there we have it. So we've got our preservation working. And now I just want to make sure that successfully restore our record. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete record 1. Let's go ahead and delete that. And let's copy in our demo code from last week. So again, what we're doing, this is the specific record that we want to restore. Actually, I have to go and get the record that we want to restore. So let's copy that sysID. Let's paste that in here because that's going to be different. We're going to go and actually look that record up. We're going to call the script include we built last week called data preserver restore, and then we're going to pass in that single record and restore it. So run this. And we'll talk about those errors in a second, but let's just make sure that the record came back. It'd help if I went to the demo records. There we go. And so let's just delete this. Run that one more time. And we should see, and there it is, it came back. So this is working. Now, last week we encountered some scope errors, and I did some research to see what's going on. So I want to talk about that because it's kind of critical to what we're doing, and it may impact the future of how we build this app. So we have this thing called set workflow false, and when we run set workflow false, what it's supposed to do is it's going to say don't, and basically we want to write to this table without running any business rule or downstream logic. We don't want to automatically update the updated field or how many, the sysmod count or things like that. The problem is there is some system logic, and I did some investigation in the platform. You can't do a set workflow. You can do it if you're modifying application, if you're So if it's a table in my scope, I can do this, no problem. But if you're modifying a record in another scope, the platform doesn't allow it. And in thinking about it, this makes sense. We don't want to, you don't want an application anonymously modifying your data without your knowledge. That's just not good. And so that's what the system is doing. It's preventing that from happening. Similar to that, there are some fields that are also not cross-scope modifiable. You can modify them in your own scope, but cross-scope you can't. And that's what we're running into with these errors here. Tags, that's just not allowing us to do that. So this is something that we're going to have to deal with at some point. Now, the important thing is, for the purposes of Live Coding Happy Hour and being able to continue building this app, we can continue to live with this. What it means is that for the time being, we're going to these values are going to get updated. Business rules are going to be run, and while that's not a good long-term thing, we can deal with it for now.
Good point to make.
So with that, we're going to just pick up with the next step, which is the process of actually restoring potentially multiple records, and we're going to build out some additional script includes. So as last week, I'm going to, in a window that you cannot see.
That man behind the curtain.
Exactly. What I want to do is first, let's just build out some convenience methods to make this a little bit easier to actually work with this application. So when we have a preserver, on that preserver, we want to be able to do something that just says basically back up all records. So if we go into...
Increase your font size a bit.
Let's go in. And on the table preservers table...
Hey, Josh, can you make your font a little bigger?
Absolutely. How's that?
Us old guys are appreciating this.
No problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a UI action on this table. So on the table preserver table, just go over to Studio and do that. And this UI action is going to say backup all records, because we don't want to be running background scripts. It's not very nice. And so table preserver is a form link. And let's see, what do we want this to do? We want this to run a script. Oh man, and this is on my other screen. And it's
basically runs the script that you were doing in scripts background, right? With the current ID?
Yep, that's pretty much it. So in this case, we're saying go out, call data preserver backup, get the current sysID. So because we're on here, we don't have to look it up. We're just going to get it. We are going to basically the backup records method returns this info object that totals up how many inserts, how many updates occurred, so we can actually send a nice friendly message, and that's it. So not really much going on here. This is just what we did, so I'm going to go ahead and save it.
If you really want to make me happy, you could have done a GS-get message and used the curly brace parameters to it.
Oh yeah, that's a good call.
Then you get language independence down the road.
Yeah. Version 2, Chuck. Version 2. This is what you get for talking application development with the best practices. So
fine, you knew that. That's you also forgot your action name on the UI action. Occupational
and
dealing with that stuff for 3 years.
This is true. You know what? That's going to bother me, so I'm just going to do. There we go. Did I lose you, Chuck?
No, we're here.
Okay, cool. Things are a little out of sync, so that's okay. So we have our backup all records. Just to make sure this works, I'm going to delete everything here, and we're going to try it. So click backup all records, and boom, it worked. We've got all of our data. So we can now very easily go ahead and back this stuff up. The next thing is restore. So we want to be able to restore all of the records for a particular preserve, and just a simple UI action.
Similar to before. He skipped over the table.
See, here I'm focusing on the wrong thing. You got me all messed up.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
I have an action name though.
And it's a form link. Check.
The important. This is going to be pretty simple, and all we're doing is we are passing in our restore. Basically, we're passing in our current method to restore all records, and we haven't really talked about restore all records. We've only done a single record, so let me just pull that up so we can see what that's doing really quickly. We actually wrote the code last week, but we didn't look at it. So we did a restore single record in a background script. What restore all records does is it says go and find this preserver. All of the, basically loop through all of those records in the preserver or associated with the preserver, and then call restore single. On the same code, we're just doing it in a loop to get everything.
Very nice way to extend it. Yep. Did you check form link on that?
I did not. So let's go ahead and check that. And now it should be here. So let's go ahead and reload. And let's go ahead and delete. I need to go into the other place. So let's go into the demo records and open that in a new tab. Let's delete all of this. And let's try this out. So restore all. Oh no, refused due to the API's cross-scope policy. So this brings up, you know what this is doing? So this is actually exactly the same thing we were seeing server side.
Yep.
So this is yet another reason that eventually we're going to probably have to convert this into a global application, because we just simply can't do some of this low-level stuff in a scoped app. This kind of platform. However, it did successfully restore these, so that is the important thing. The other very important code here briefly, we say if the field is the sysid, we're saying set new GUID value. This is still possible even across scope, because this is honestly the most important thing is to preserve the sysids, and that is still working. So that's all good. All right, so we've got backup all, we've got restore all. I have one for purge all records. All that does is it just clears everything out. I'm not going to bore you and actually go through that right now. But what we can do now is I'd like to start actually incorporating this into some kind of an automated operation. So what happens when we actually uninstall and reinstall the app? How do we make this thing run? So what we want to do is we actually want to create a, well, actually, let's do this first. So we're going to open up and we're going to take a look at something here.
Okay.
So in the event log, every time you uninstall and reinstall an app, now I'm going to open up a new studio window here. Oops, I don't want the whole thing. Switch.
Are you looking for the event that gets triggered when you uninstall and reinstall?
Yep, that's exactly it. So I'm just going to switch branches, and switching branches is going to trigger that. So let's go ahead and let this do its thing. And while that's working, let's go ahead and just keep looking at the events that are coming through. Make sure we've sorted this the right way. That looks correct.
Yep.
So we get two things that come through. We get plugin activated and plugin upgraded.
Because the uninstall and install.
And so what we can do is we can trigger on these now to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The uninstall and reinstall engine from Studio is using the plugin engine underneath the hoods, which is why it says plugin upgraded, plugin activated.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing about Studio is they've really just taken that and they have extended lots of core things that have been in the platform for a long time. And obviously they've done a lot of new stuff to make that work, but still fundamentally it's plugin activation. So we can now tie to this, and we can say is the actual scope of the app itself, which means that we can determine which app it was. And so what we're going to do is build a script action to react to this event, to then sort of walk backwards and say, go look for the preserver associated with this scope and do the restoration. So let's do that here. We're going to create a script action. We're going to call this restore data. And we're going to do this on plugin.upgraded. I don't know if it matters which one we do it, if it's plugin upgraded or activated, but in this case, I just chose upgraded. We also want to put a condition on this. So I'm going to just copy and paste the condition in, and then we're going to go and implement it. So what we want to do is we want to say, does the scope have a preserver?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, we don't want to run this, obviously. But what that means is we got to go and implement data preserver util. So let's just pause and do that now. So we're going to go ahead and create a new script include. All this data. A little bad because this feels more scripted than it should be, but in reality, we've never actually tried to build this as a scoped application, so it's not exactly a demo.
Good experience.
Yeah. And I'm having that same thing I was having before. When I first start to try to type in the name,
Oh, yeah.
it pops up. So let me type down here and see if
You gotta
yep,
click.
that does it.
That happened last week. What's with this instance?
I don't know. It's a local instance. It's not maybe the latest version of Istanbul, so I probably need to. So in our data preserver util, we're going to build out a number of things as we go through, but for now, I'm just going to build out this one for, does it have preservers?
Yeah, it was a method called has data preserver.
Yeah, so let's see from our magic land on the other side of, there we go. Let's copy and paste this in. Oh, that got way too much stuff. What on earth? Well, that's okay. Ooh, let's recopy that. Not exactly sure what's going on there. So scope has preservers. Boom, there we go. So what this is doing is this is taking in a scope name. We got to convert this because this is going to a different table. So this is going to be table preserver. And by the way, I think since last week,
yeah,
Chrome has changed enough that I can actually copy the table name now.
So it didn't work for me, but I haven't done an upgrade in a while.
Now be okay, which is cool.
Yay.
So we're going to say, what is it, project?
No, it was
source application.
Source application. We battled with that last week.
So source application dot scope is scope name. And basically we're just saying, is there anything? We don't care how many, so we're going to set the limit to 1. Is there anything associated with that scope name? And if so, we're just going to return gr.has next. So let's save that. And let me clear out that description because that's full of just a mess
line numbers.
We don't care. Now let's go back to our script action and let's just do something in the log.
You're missing something.
Missing something.
You're missing something. Scroll up.
Yes.
Scroll up. There. The active flag.
You know, minor things, minor things. We're going to do a very original it ran message. Now we cannot debug this. I would love to fire up the debugger, but script actions run asynchronously. This is not going to happen in the context of my current transaction. So that's why we're...
Are you using a GS log in a scoped app? Good boy.
Old habits, old habits.
Yeah. old programmers have old habits.
Yes, I'll get there eventually. The other thing I was realizing the other day is I was typing lots of gs.debugs when I could have just fired up the debugger. That's a habit that's going to take a little while to...
I did the same thing.
Yeah, so, well, we'll get there. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to my other studio window. Let's go ahead and switch the branch again. We're probably going to be doing this a few times. Switch back to master. And let's fire up some logs. Log list. And let's see. And let's just let that go. It's going to take a minute.
There it is. Drop table.
Yeah, interesting.
Run preservers from schedule. There's a warning in there.
Yeah, I think that's from something old. Let's see if this is still okay. So it's successfully switched.
Okay.
And has this thing run yet? It ran. So
it ran.
So that's good news. So our condition actually returned true. So now what we want to do is actually finish.
Yep.
Back, and we're going to do a couple of things. So we're going to say, I'm just going to keep a gas.info in here for now that says restore preserved records. We're going to say scope equals event.parm1 just to make it a little easier to know what we're talking about. We need to pull up this thing called
data preserver util.
We need a DPR for restore.
Oops, you got some equals missing there, buddy.
We actually, so in the past, I had inside of data preserver util this thing called get project for scope, and I'm going to change that. So I'm going to say, I guess app equals dpu.get app for scope, which doesn't exist yet. We're going to have to go and build that momentarily. And then now that we have the app name, we're going to say dpu.repopulate app. So what's going on here is, let's go back and take a look at this so I can demonstrate what's going to happen. If we look at the source applications,
you may have multiple.
Notice how this is empty now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's empty because the thing got uninstalled and the references to the application were cleared out. Now we have a static reference to the scope. So what we can now do is I'm basically just going to put in a utility function that says anytime we capture this event, we're just going to go back and repopulate that. So we're going to continue to maintain that link. So that's one of the things we're going to have to do here. And we're going to pass in the project, or I'm sorry, the app, the scope. Then the final thing is we're going to say DPR, so our restore all preservers for app. Now, this is not all implemented, but this is kind of the flow that we want to go through. We kind of have to collect this information each time. And at this point, let's go ahead and actually implement these things. So first up, we will implement get app for scope. Let's go into our data preserver util and say get app for scope.
And are you getting that out of what, sysapp?
Yeah, that's going to come. I believe that's going to come out of sysapp. Let's take a look here. Oops, let's move that out there. Just moving some things around so I can more effectively go through this. So this is going to actually come out of, what is this? Bear with me one second while I look. So get project for scope. We want to get the app for scope. So this is actually going to come from the source application table. And it's going to be the X data preserver source app.
Mm-hmm.
New glide record. We're going to say gr to add query scope, scope name. And we're just going to return the glide record. So we now have a reference to the application for a given scope name. The other thing that we want to do is that repopulate thing. So let's go ahead and see what we called that. We called that repopulate app. So let's implement that.
Well, I got a question though, but wasn't your source app
to do the repopulation, we have to actually go, I think this is where you're going a minute ago, out to the syscope table.
Okay. Didn't your, okay, that's where that's what I was thinking. Yep. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so now we're going to say gr.add query scope is scope name. Query that, and then if gr.next,
Yep.
we're going to say project gr. And actually, we need to take two things in here. We need to take app gr.
Oh, right.
App, and how you like to do that. So
You fleshed it out in your script action before that way.
Dot application get value city. That should do it. And let's just save this and let's take a look.
And that's another emphasis on something we pointed out a few shows ago about glide records being pointers. That's how that works. You're not passing in a copy of GR app. It is a pointer to the glide record object. So you can do this setting of values. You can do the updates. You can do all that stuff within your scripting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're glitching out a little bit, so I think we've caught up.
Keep going. Nothing happened.
Good deal. Well, you were given a good explanation there, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't talking over the top of you. So so we've got our app from doing get app for scope. We're going to repopulate the app, which again we're passing in that gr reference that Chuck was talking about, and then we're going to update it with that particular scope. We need to implement. Let's just make sure that restore all preservers is there. So let's look at our restore method or script include. We've got restore all preservers for application. So yep, that should be good to go. And in theory, if this thing worked, if we've re-implemented these methods correctly, this should actually go out there and run after the application has switched over. So let's go ahead and try it. If it works, I will be really, really happy. I'm expecting that we might have to do a little bit of debugging because we've changed sort of conceptually some of the things going on because of the naming differences between these apps. So let's go back and switch to test branch. Let that thing go on its merry way. It's going to uninstall, and we're just going to take a look at the logs and see what happens. Needed roll. Now let's just keep watching this so that we. Okay, so it's done. We'll take a look at the log again. And what happened? Data preserver util.run preservers for schedule. Okay, that doesn't matter.
Yep.
Undefined is not a function. That's still our old thing. Let's keep ignoring that. Restore preserved records. So we've started our script action. So that's important. And we don't have any errors. So let's see if it actually ran. Let's go to our demo records table and refresh it. They're all there.
Oh,
so
that was too easy.
That was way too easy. You know what? I don't believe it. Let's try this one more time.
Well, don't you need to delete the records first?
Well, they'll go away though. So
because you're uninstalling the app.
Yeah. So let's just verify this. It's gone. It's undefined. It doesn't exist. I'm just going to sit back and take a sip of beer because I think we've done some great work here. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. Let's give it a few more moments. And they're back.
Oh, that is so cool.
So, wow, this is going better than I thought it would. It always makes me a little bit sad because I like debugging on live coding happy hour, but that's okay. So let's take a look at where we are. So we have our app now. We've got our preservers. We can set these preservers up on really any table. And I found some interesting things in this demo. So I did a webinar this morning, and that's actually the reason that I was building this whole concept was because I had this live webinar to do, and I had to do lots and lots of switches between branches. And every time those switches would occur, I would have to go back and get the demo data. But it's not just data in your own tables. Some of the time you need to worry about data tables as well So a good example of that would be assigning a role. So if you assign a role from your custom app to a user, and then you uninstall your application, those sysuser has role records go away. And then every time you're back in there and you're reassigning the role to the user. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I want to see if it's going to work. So let's let's try this.
And you bring up another good note that not all tables, you can't use the UI action create application file on all tables. And I think sysuser has role is one of those.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never actually tried it, but so let's try both of those things. So let's go ahead and let's assign this role to a user. Let's just pick a user.
Because right now we're backing up the entire
tutor because he's the de facto demo user for everything.
Your data preserver algorithm is backing up the entire table at this point, correct? We don't have any filtering capabilities.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So that's a really good point. So we're gonna have to take a look at that. Because that's actually a very important point. So let's do that. That's something that's not in any version of the app. Let's build a filter on the preserver, and then execute that filter based on what is available. So
we get into some good encoded query land here. This is where we start to geek out, as if we haven't already.
So this is going to get interesting. This is where we're completely off the beaten path now. What we have to do is we have to add a filter. And what data type is that, Chuck? Do you recall? Condition. All right. So conditions. It's got to be conditions, right?
Conditions. Condition string is like what you see at the top of a UI action or a business rule.
Got it. So we're going to say condition. Now the thing that we're not going to have right now is we don't have a table.
You have a table. You have a table string. Will that work?
We'll find out. We will find out. So let's see what happens. Let's do that, and then we have to go to condition and go into the dictionary. Do we have to go advanced? I think we do.
It should work fine on the backup part, right? Because you create the backup records on demand, but you restore them on the event.
Well, so we're creating them on demand now. But one of the things, and we can do this too today, is I want to set up scheduled jobs that say for each preserver, you could either set it up to run on demand, or you could set it up to run every 5 minutes or run every hour, so that you're not having to always remember to back. Because I think that's kind of a common issue where as you're working and you're building stuff, at some point you just want it to be done. You don't want to think about it.
Yep.
So that's going to be the question. So let's just try this. I'm going to set source table, and we'll see how it looks.
It's going to work.
Go to preserver.
And you're on Istanbul, so you're going to get condition builder. Oh, not by default. I don't think you get condition builder v2. Set a property for that. But we don't need it.
So let's do this. I could actually put this thing on my form.
That'd be nice. Demo data app is selected. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I've got the wrong app selected. So let's
switch scope.
There we go. Where's my condition field?
Are you on the right table?
Did I create that condition field on the wrong table?
Save. we got a little too excited. We might have lost track of where we were.
Where was that?
It's on the table preserver table. Is that the form you were just?
Yeah, that should be.
You hit save. It's in the list.
Table preserver.
Table preserver. Oh, condition empty. There it is.
Okay, that was weird. This looks okay because all I see is name and description. So let's just change it to make sure. Let's say sys user has role. Yeah, there we go. So we can actually do that. That's super helpful.
Specific role. You could say backup all users with this role, and we haven't implemented the logic to say to filter on just those records. That should be a simple just to add an encoded query from that condition.
Yeah, let's do that now. So let's go into We're going to want to do this in our
Backup.
data preserver backup script, exactly. And in backup records, we're saying gr this.table, and we probably want to say if.
Yeah, to see if the condition is not empty. I guess it really wouldn't
let's
matter.
Take a look. Right. Well, yeah, you're probably right. So this .preserver. So the preserver in this case is the actual record itself. So let's say if this .preserver condition. Let me just reverse this. Not. I'm going to say gr dot add encoded query.
This .preserver dot condition.
I think that'll do it.
No, I don't think you can do a value on a dot walk like that.
No.
Oh wait, yes you can, because it's this. I was one dot off. You can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure you can, but
yeah, I thought we went dot walking down another record, but this threw me off.
Down the wrong way.
Anytime I see two dots in a get value, I get a little twitchy.
No, that makes perfect sense. So at this point, let me just close some of these extra windows that are open. What I'm going to do is modify our existing preserver on the demo data app records preserver. And I'm going to say name ends with
a one.
Yeah.
Should get.
I should only match one record, really.
1 and 10.
So it's not a very interesting condition. Okay, and now I'm just going to delete all this stuff.
Yep.
And back them up. Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
Oh. That was too easy. What is it today?
It's the trade-off. We're having slight internet technical issues, but we're just having fantastic time with the actual code itself. So
you're not gonna factor Dave into the equation anywhere here.
Dave, if you're watching, it's all your fault. No, we're completely kidding.
I think he just said we're better off without you.
Not even close. Not even close. It is not the same without Dave.
No, it's not.
Dave today. So we've got it for our demo records, and I'm just gonna do this for the sysuser has role because I really want to know if it's going to successfully restore a role or if we're gonna have more cross-scope issues.
That's a good question because, like we said before, the user roles table, the sysuser has role table, is not one of those that you can go check on the list and go down to the bottom and say create application file. It's grayed out for that table.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be interesting if this actually works for that table. So you want to add a table condition to your demo data app?
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. So, whoops. Let's see. What am I? So we're in source applications. We
Demo
want
data
a
app.
data app.
Go in there.
Yep.
Get a new table. Yep.
There we go. And we're going to say show related fields because we want to get role fields. We want the role name.
It should still work off of the display value, though. I would think you should be able to just say role is.
Maybe. I guess we'll try it. My only fear is the reference value, if that's going to get cleared out.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll try it both ways. We've got some time.
We do. Let's try it your way first. Let's see what happens. So let's just go back to user role fields. We'll say role
is, and then you want the role for your.
There we go.
Okay.
Save it. First off,
we need no. Before you go any further, right-click on condition. We need two things in here.
Okay.
We need two attributes. One I always do just out of we're in the wrong app.
I'm losing you, Chuck. So
we got to switch scope back to
I have to repeat what you were saying there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Two attributes. One is readable equals true.
Okay.
That way, if anybody ever puts this on a list, it comes out as readable English instead of the encoded query string.
What's going on here?
I don't know. I just type it in the attributes field. You have two edit buttons. What happened? Readable equals true. And what's the other one? Show record count equals true. I think it's
like
underscore. Show num records. I can't remember what it is. Let me look real fast.
Okay. So what do these do while you're looking?
Readable equals true puts it in plain English when it shows up on a list. If anybody ever adds this column to a list, it will say active is true rather than active equals true up caret some condition and a sys ID.
Okay. So literally readable as in human readable, somebody can actually see this and understand.
Yes. And the other one is, let me see if I can find it fast enough for you. The other one says when you've got a condition field on a form, it gives you the number of records that matched that condition.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, I'm going to go ahead and save this. We're going to see if that did it while you're looking it up, and I'm just going to go back and take a look. So back. We'll save this. And it doesn't look like our one was quite what we needed, so I'll wait for you to find that.
Count. I'm sorry. Show underscore condition underscore count was the other value.
Show condition count? Okay, let's do that real quick. So close.
Show, yeah.
Now, are these comma or semicolon separated?
Comma.
Comma, perfect.
Comma. And the related list should update automatically.
Perfect. And indeed it does.
Good, we got the right one. I built a lab on this. See, now you can tell how many records you're going to get.
And we can even click on it and we can see what it is. Very nice, very nice. Very, very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and back them all up. Let's see what happens. So you'll see that we went a read operation on this table for sysuser has role. And this is another reason that as we think about the future of the app that we're going to probably end up sharing this as a global app, because once this is not in tracking mode, all of a sudden we're going to have this thing asking for privileges for tables that it's never heard about before. And just long term, it's not going to be very useful. This is more of kind of a platform wide thing. So we've got this. Let's go ahead and do a switch and see what happens. So we're going to switch branches again to test branch. And we're going to watch our data go away. That's gone. Let me see if I can find my, if I can get into AbleTutor's record fast enough before it actually finishes restoring.
Yes.
All right, so he has no roles right now. Successfully switched to the branch. Let's see if we have run the restore, 1617, there it is.
Drum roll, refresh Able's form or list.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, that is so cool.
Okay, take a drink on that one. Cheers.
I'm out.
You know, this might be one of the smoothest live coding happy hours we've done from a code standpoint. And I promise you, we've never implemented this piece of functionality before. All right, so what else do we want now? So,
questions?
So actually, there's one more thing we can do. We've got 12 minutes. So actually, yeah, let's pause. Let's see if we've got any comments or questions really quick.
There's a comment in the YouTube that says, from Andrew Barnes, he says, I enjoyed Not Your Father's Root Beer.
Oh, good, good. Me too. Me too.
And then Corey Searing says, it's worth leaving those debug statements in anyway. Then this is in production and something goes wrong. You just turn on the debug property and you have a permanent log.
I completely missed that. Again, the trade-off of technical issues to actual code working. I completely missed what Corey said.
We were debating whether to leave in the GS info or take it out, and he said leave it in because then when it's in prod, you just turn on your application level debugging, and you've got a permanent log of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and I do like that. I do want there to be some kind of a record of this thing that, hey, we've turned this thing on, and it's only going to run if there was a preserver. So if there wasn't a preserver, we're not going to throw the log.
Yes.
So cool. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So the other thing that, so this is all on demand, and the thing with this is cool, this is useful, but this is really no different than if you go into a list of words and say, let's go into our demo data. And in our demo data, we can say create application file. And when we do this, this is going to go out there, and this is going to add this to the sys metadata link table.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to store it. And basically every time if we commit this to the Git repo, every time we restore or every time we go back to this branch, it's going to load the data in. And so this is very useful. This is great, but you have to do this manually every time. And that's not something, basically you want to do that for stuff that you really, really want in your repository, which we may not want this stuff there. So what I'd like to do is implement a scheduled job. Basically on the preserver, we can determine which job we want it to be associated with. So I can tell you what I did before, and we've only got 10 minutes, so maybe we're just going to sort of brainstorm as to how we might do this. Maybe we'll come back to, well, not next week, because this is probably one of our last live coding happy hours for the year. But talk about some strategies for that. So what I did before is I created a series of scheduled jobs. This is kind of the brute force way of doing it. I'm going to drag this onto the screen. And basically I said, here's one called backup every hour. Here's one called backup every minute. Here's one called backup every 5 minutes. And then on the actual form, I put a field that actually referenced those scheduled jobs. So you could actually select which one you wanted. And then in the scheduled job, there's a hard-coded script that says, go and look for everything for the 5-minute job and go and look for everything for the the hour job. The problem with that, it's not very extensible. What if you want it every 7 minutes?
Right.
So that's kind of the next question, is how we want to do that. So I don't know. What do you think about that one, Chuck? We can add a reference. There are a couple of things we could do. We could actually extend the scheduled job table and do something crazy there, and then reference that from our preserver. We could do the thing that I did before, which is just say, hey, here's your 3 or 4 buckets. Choose which one you want. I don't know.
Yeah, an extensible way of doing that. I kind of like the reference idea of putting a reference field that says, am I associated with a scheduled job? If so, which one? And you could even put a reference qualifier on that reference field that says it has to start with data preserver : or something, so that you could continue to build it out and say, this one runs once a week, this one runs once a year, this one, and you could still build onto that scheduled job architecture. I'm not coming up with like a super slick alternative.
Yeah, I think it's going to probably, maybe somewhere in the middle of those two things. So let's do this. Let me first just create a scheduled job, and let's just see if we can build off of it.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. So scheduled script execution. Yeah, that's what we want. And let's just create one. We'll call it data preserver.
The only other alternative I could think of would be to put some sort of periodicity. Maybe we can take those fields that are on a scheduled job and put them onto the table preserver and say, I want to run this scheduled periodically, on demand, hourly. Those 4 or 5 fields that are shown and hidden with UI policies, and then have a scheduled job that, now that's sort of redundant, isn't it? You'd have to have a scheduled job that runs basically every minute to say, is it time for you to run? Is it time for you to run? Is it time for you to run? Huh.
Now, here's an interesting thing. Since when are they associated with a table?
That's a scheduled script execution. Yeah, since when? Is that an Istanbul thing?
I don't know.
You didn't put my scriptless scheduled job update set on this instance, did you? Because I added a table field to that.
Let's take a look.
It's called table. Someone's been monkeying with your instance.
I think this is your scriptless scheduled jobs.
It doesn't have anything else on my thing from, the advanced. Sure enough, there's the advanced, the checkbox. You did load my update set on here.
I did. So, well, Chuck, we're going to have a conversation about that one later.
I didn't put. Yeah, 'cause there's
All right.
the 2 tabs that I have. Okay, leave it as advanced. Oh, that table was supposed to be hidden. It's just not required.
Got it. Okay. That's okay, though. So, what we're going to do is we're going to run a script. Let me see what this script is supposed to be.
Pretty sad when you don't recognize your own work. This guy's a freaking genius. And away we go. You have a Outlook reminder on the screen, by the way.
Oh, there we go. Let's get that out of there. I'm sure nobody's too interested in that. So let me do this. I'm going to go into my employee instance. And I'm going to pull up a script because I have a copy of this over there. And scheduled script executions.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Sorry, my internet connection is freezing up a little bit right now. And what we want to do is basically something like this. So in this case, we have our data preserver util. That should have something like that. Run preservers for this schedule, and then we're going to run it for a particular named schedule. Now, the interesting thing here, this is kind of a hacky way to do it, but this would allow us to have a reference to the schedule script execution table, do a reference qualifier like you said. So we're going to say only bring back things that start with data preserver. The only thing that you're required to do is if you want to add your own schedules, you just have to make sure that the script follows this exact convention, which is make sure that I pass my own name into the actual execution of.
I was going to ask what's the need for that self-referential label there?
Well, so the problem is otherwise we don't know what we're executing.
Because you can't really say current dot. Well, no, you can't say current dot society.
No, yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, the only other way I could possibly think of this, I don't know if there is I'm not aware of any special variables that allow you to reference the script itself. If we could determine what our own name was, then we could just pass the job that we're running into this script include. I don't know how to do that, so that might be something for another day. So basically that is what the approach would be. And basically we would then add a reference field on the form itself for the preserver, and then this thing would go off and do its thing. So we've got 3 minutes. I think we should probably wind this down and kind of leave it at, because we don't really have enough time to dig into this.
There are no additional questions being seen here.
All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to try to stop screen sharing.
Unlock that. Nice job today. We had very good success.
Thank you. Yes, I think we did very well. So our data preserver application, we're now successfully automatically restoring stuff as soon as we have switched a branch or done something that causes the application to get uninstalled and reinstalled. In the future, and at some point, I'll share some version of this application. We'll do something that automatically goes out there and backs this stuff up so that you don't have to think about it. And I think there are really a lot of possible things that you could do with this. So I'm pretty excited.
I would love to see this in the platform at some point in the future.
Oh, I would too. We should talk to people about this.
We have contacts.
We do. I know a guy, you know a guy, we all know some guys. We'll talk to those people and see what we can find out. So beer rating time.
Beer rating time. Oh, I'm always up for a good hard root beer. This was I'm gonna have to log this in Untapped. If you aren't on Untapped, join us. You can find me at C Tomasi. I'm gonna give this one a good solid 4. I like it.
That's pretty good. And Anti-Hero IPA is actually one of my favorites. That's why I chose it today. I'm going to give this a good solid 4 as well. I don't remember my name on Untapped, but if you find Chuck, I'm one of his friends, so you can find me that way.
You look by name too. It doesn't have to necessarily be a handle.
Yep, look up Josh Nerius and you'll find me there. So with that, we're going to close this out. We don't have a live coding happy hour scheduled, I don't believe, for. Do we? Yeah, we have one next week, right? It's going to be early.
December, yes.
Yep. So we've got one more. It's going to be early in the morning instead of in the evening. And then after that, because of vacation and Christmas and other holidays, we will not be doing this again until early next year.
Enjoy your time off. We got one more to go.
One more to go. All right.
Thanks for joining.
Chuck.
Bye.